Hey, all, welcome to this week's episode of the Shut Up, Get Up podcast. I'm your host, Mike Muldoon. And, this week we're going to be talking about how the opinions of others can create self-doubt and how it's important to understand that just because someone has an opinion, it doesn't mean you have to own it. There's no way around it. Opinions are everywhere. That device we all carry around all day long has numerous gateways into a world of the opinionated, whether it's an opinion on the news, local, global, sports, individuals, or whatever, or whether someone has an opinion on what someone's wearing, not wearing, whatever. There's an award season come on, whether people have opinions who should win, should lose, whatever. People have opinions all day. Everyone has an opinion. Sometimes the masses have a uniformed opinion, right? Like anti-gun people opinions are guns should be illegal, while gun advocates opinions are it's my right, screw off. Everybody has an opinion on something. And the thing is, there was a time in history, right, where an opinion of us, when someone had an opinion of us, it really mattered. Opinions of us, it mattered from the moment mankind decided not to go about it alone, people started to work together, realizing that they were safer in groups. People started moving into towns and away from being alone on the range, out of fear of running into some sort of, unscrupulous members of society during the wild, wild west, right? Or even going back even further, hundreds of thousands of years during the Stone Age, where the need to work together to hunt and avoid being killed by like a saber-toothed tiger or something, how people viewed you, the opinions they had towards you, they mattered. And they kept you in that group or in that town. Or if not, they cast you aside, left you out in cold, left you alone and vulnerable. So there was a time when the opinions from others actually really mattered. But the thing is, nowadays, at least to many of us who exist in a first world nation, we can manage to avoid unscrupulous people. We can lock ourselves away in our homes if we want to. If there's any problems, a lot of times we have the ability to call someone for help. And, that threat of that saber-toothed tiger or any tiger out there in suburban America attacking somebody, it's probably less than 1%. For the most part, we really don't need the group as much anymore. We don't have to be overly concerned with the opinions of others, that revolves around us in order to keep us safe. But alas, opinions still are there and people are going to still share them. Now, again, opinions aren't always bad. An opinion that somebody might have for you or towards you about something that can provide insight into our lives. It can even help us at times. My wife will often give her opinion on what I'm wearing, but it's usually not much of a statement as much of a question like, are you really going to wear that again? So we should sometimes listen to the opinions of people we trust. It could provide some sort of balance in our lives and an indicator of what we might need to change. In that case, for instance, with my wife, it was probably time to change those clothes. Now, with all of this being said, opinions are just that. They're an opinion. And a definition of opinion is basically a view or judgment formed about something, not necessarily based on fact or knowledge, right? And most opinion come from others' perspectives of what they think is right or what fits the narrative of their life. Now, I've talked about this in past episodes. No two people are alike, right? Two people can be asked their opinion on something or the experience on something going through the same event, and yet both could have two different viewpoints or reactions just because of how they were programmed since birth, right? So for more on this, if you haven't listened to my previous podcast, I'd go back and listen to it. The episode called Understanding the Mind. But basically, it's each of us, from the day we are born, we begin to write a master program, which is basically our subconscious program, which is going to dictate how we interact with the world. Now, from that master program, it's here that people are going to form their opinions on things. Now, where opinions can be problems, because a lot of times, opinions don't really affect our lives, right? Somebody might have an opinion towards you, hey man, I think you look better in red, or hey, you should wear blue, or hey, I like your hair this way. And a lot of times those opinions, whatever, it's an opinion, it is what they're saying. Most opinions don't matter, but where opinions can be a challenge for some people, where they can really be a challenge, and when it rocks their world, right? Again, some opinions are minor, like, I don't think you should cross that road over there, or I don't think you should take that vacation there, or I don't think you should do that. I mean, some of these are just minor opinions. But when somebody's opinion on something, conflicts with a goal or a dream or something we're trying to accomplish, that's when it's a problem. So again, keep in mind, a lot of times the opinions we're getting from others fits their worldview, but not yours or ours, right? Someone who grew up believing that you have to work hard in school and the only way to get a good job is to go to college. If somebody asks them, hey, should I go to college? Their opinion is probably gonna be pretty emphatic. Like, yes, you need to go. It's not even an option. You got to go. It's the only way you're going to do it. If you don't, you're going to fail at life. Whereas someone who didn't go to college but found success elsewhere might argue like college is a waste of money. Right? Two different opinions, two people coming at it from two different narratives. How do others' opinions create this self-doubt in us, and how can it shake us to our core? Well, the challenge really lies in our brains. See, our brains have been hardwired through evolution to basically focus on the negative. It's basically going back to what we talked about earlier. It's what kept us alive. When we were walking around hunting in our little group, we weren't like, oh my God, look at that fruit tree. Oh, wow, look at that bush. Isn't that a beautiful sunset? It was more like, geez, I better keep a lookout so I don't get eaten. And by doing so and being heightened towards the negativity, of the worst case scenario, it basically increased our survival rates. Now, again, we don't live in those times anymore. But when someone shares their opinion, it allows the brain to step in and do what it does best. Place doubt in your mind and to begin to offer up the path of least resistance. For all the incredibleness that the brain is and how it operates the body, it's kind of lazy. There was a study, and if anybody's familiar with it, please comment, let me know. I can't remember where I read it, but it was a really interesting study. And it took a bunch of people, right? And it basically put them in front of this screen. And it had these dots moving right or left. And there was a handle in front of it. And what happened was if the dots were moving right, the people taking part in the study would move the handle right. If the dots were moving left, the people in the handle would move it left. But what happens is, unbeknownst to the participants in this thing, the researchers were adding weight to the handles, right? So making it a little bit more difficult to move. And what started happening is that even if the thing was going left, these people were moving it right because it was just slightly easier for them. And more importantly, not only are they just doing it just because it was easier, they had basically changed their perception as well, that even though the dots are moving right, they were moving it left where it was easier, and their perception was that the dots were actually moving left. So again, the human brain is going to give you the path of least resistance. That's why a lot of times people quit on things, because it's so much easier to just say, you know what, I'm not going to do this one. So again, getting back, when an opinion, right, conflicts with an idea or a goal or a venture or something you're working towards, it's very easy for the brain to jump in and say, yeah, you know what, you're probably right. You're probably right. You're training for a marathon, or you're training for a new job, or you're thinking about going to school, and somebody's like, oh, yeah, I want to do that marathon. Have you heard of how many people, get hurt during marathons? Or why are you going to pay for school? It's useless. You don't need it. Or why, whatever it's going to be. Everybody throw opinions on everything. Now, the interesting thing is, the further removed you are from the person, the less sting their opinion might make. It still might make some sting, but the less it's going to make, right? If some random person on a street makes casually tosses their opinion away, it may not sting. The real challenge arises when it's somebody you really admire or somebody that's really close to you. That's where it can really rock your world. Maybe it's somebody you really care about. Maybe it's a parent. Maybe it's a best friend. It's a teacher. And you start talking about your business idea or this venture. Well, and they offer their, well, my opinion is that, they never say my opinion, but they'll just say, well, I don't know. I don't really see how that would work. Yeah, I don't really see a market for that. I don't believe that that's something that you're going to find success in. Or, it doesn't even have to be so direct. It could be like, well, good luck. But there's like, there's a lot of other people out there doing that right now. And whatever it is. And right there, the minute that happens, that self-doubt can creep in. I've even seen this in other people, which is really fascinating. I've seen people who are very successful at something, very successful. And you probably know people like this as well. They're so successful at something, or they're very good at something. And it's almost like if every time they did something, they got reviewed, right? It was there. They got reviewed. And it's amazing how you can see somebody who can get 50 reviews and 49 can tell them they're so good at something. But yet one person's bad review can really rock them to the core. Maybe you're one of these people. You can focus on that. All of a sudden, the other 50 don't matter because you're locking in on the other one. And maybe it's because you're kind of journeying. You're still trying to get to where you're going. You're still building that career. You're still building that whatever you're doing. That's when the brain steps in and goes, well, maybe it's right. We still got a long journey to go, and maybe we're not going to get there. And maybe we should just stop here. But this is where people succeed. And this is where winners win, because you got to be able to push through that. You got to be able to push through that. So how do you handle this? How do you handle the opinions from others? Well, just understand and realize that everybody's going to have an opinion. Everybody's going to have their way. And you just got to understand it's just part of the equation. No matter how great you are, no matter how wonderful you are, no matter how good your journey is, no matter how successful you might be at some point, somebody's always going to have an opinion. Guess what? You are never, ever, 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 ever going to please everybody. And some of those people you're never, ever, ever going to please might be some of the people who are really close to you. They might be family members, they might be friends, they might be business or whatever it is. You're not going to please everyone. That's why it's really important that you have to have the confidence and the trust in yourself. See, again, somebody can share an opinion with you, but it's important for you to just not take it on board and say, okay, well, gosh, they're right. And that's it. Look at it, learn from it. Does it work for you? I remember when I was doing a lot of writing, one of the things about writing is everybody likes to give your opinion. So if you write a script or a project or something, you hand it to people. It's almost like people don't know how to read without feeling like they have to give you your opinion, which actually makes you a really good reader if you understand what your job is not to give your opinions, but to actually look at it from a distance to help improve a project. But anyway, people love to give their opinions. And when you're early in the process, when you're a young writer, every opinion rocks your world. Every opinion, everything somebody says to you rocks your world. And as you get older and you get more comfortable in yourself and get more comfortable in your talents, you start realizing that these opinions are, you take them on like a grain of salt. Sometimes they're great and you go, oof, I'm going to implement that because that's going to make this project better. Or I'm just going to let it go. It is what it is. That's just somebody's opinion. It's not how I see it. I'm not being defensive about it. I'm not defending my work. I just think we're coming at it from two different ways. I've looked at it. I don't see it. So I'm going to let it go. It's the same thing in your life. You have to sort of understand that everybody's going to have an opinion, and it's important to just kind of sit there and be your own kind of filter in there. Like, well, is this right? Is this really what I am? Or is this really something I need to consider? Or is this just, somebody's opinion? And again, remember, most people's opinions, especially if you're trying to do something against the norm, right? You're somebody who's trying to build a business. You've somebody who's kind of gone against the grain and done this. You're going to get a lot of opinions because most people will never leave their comfort zones. So a lot of times for that, if you're doing something radical right now, like, hey man, I just cashed out my 401k and I'm running to create my business. This is what I'm doing. You're going to have a lot of opinions towards that one. But if you believe in what you do and you trust in what you're going to do, you got to just look at those opinions and understand where those people are coming from. They're basically coming from a place that they don't have the balls to do what you're going to do. And sometimes it's just understanding that if you're an outlier like this, if you're somebody who's doing something that most people won't do, and most people won't leave their comfort zones, then that's number one thing. Just look at their opinions just come from a place of being scared, or they're fearful, or they're jealous because they'll never do what you're willing to do. So that's one thing to look at. The other thing is, again, to consider the source from where it's coming from. Again, if you're getting advice or people's opinions from people who've never done anything, they grew up in the same town, they stay in the same town, they won't leave the same town, they this and that, whatever it is, and some people are happy this way, but you're somebody who's like, I'm going to pick up, I'm moving across the country, I'm going to go out there and try to live my life. I'm going to see how this is going to be. Well, if their opinion is, well, you shouldn't do that, that's stupid. Well, you got to look at the fact that they're just somebody who wouldn't do that. So really you got to consider where the opinion is coming from. But ultimately, as I always say, it is your life and you need to live it. And the only opinion that really matters, the one that really matters, because here's the thing, even if you do something, right, and maybe it doesn't work out, but at least you did it. At least you work towards it, because you will always be better for going after something, even if you don't get it, than never doing it all. But the only opinion that ever matters, and if I leave you with anything here, I'm going to leave you with this, is the opinion of yourself. Because people will never arise above the opinion of themselves. Which means if you have a very low opinion of yourself, you will stay low. If you have a very high opinion of yourself, you will go high. It's kind of like what Tony says. Tony talks about all the time. He says, you know what? You want to improve your life, you got to increase your standards. The same thing. So the only opinion that really matters is the one you have around yourself. Listen, thank you again this week tuning into the Shut Up Get Up podcast. I'm your host, Mike Muldoon. I, again, appreciate y'all being here. And again, follow me on Facebook, Mike Muldoon LC, Instagram, Mike Muldoon LC, comment, text. If you're listening to this podcast, if you take 2 seconds, hit your Spotify, your Apple, wherever you're listening, you don't have to have an account for any of these things. If you just click down, leave a review, leave an honest review, or, leave a comment. Tell me something you'd like to hear, or maybe you have something that you're like, hey, what's your thoughts on this, Michael? Or how can I improve this? I'd love to hear it. So I'm here for you for that. Or you can always check out my website, MikeMuldoonLC.com. If you want to talk on a one-on-one level, that's not a problem also there. But listen, again, as always, I appreciate you all. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to me today. And you know what? Have yourself an awesome weekend. Love to you all.